BetOnline is back and better than ever. A new web interface for the rest of the NFL season and the NBA season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all football and basketball action this season. Make sure to head over to the new updated desktop or mobile website and sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code BELIEVE50. That's BLEAV50. BELIEVE50 to receive your bonus. From football to basketball to NHL to boxing to UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the rest of the 2021 seasons. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. What up, TCK Potters? Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Scott Guasco, joined by my man, Bobby Lamarco, continuing our mini-series on NFL free agency, fantasy football wish list. We have two different mindsets on the program. If you haven't been around for the rest of our videos, I take the player side. If I'm that player on that team, where do I want to go? What makes the most sense for me as that player, the best fit? And then Bob takes the other hat. He's the GM. He's going to be the team thinking, we're getting rid of these players. We're trying to bring in these types of players. Who in the free agency market is the best fit for our squad in the spots we need to fill? So stick around with us here. We got a quick hitter for you covering the AFC South in this show. We'll be right back with you with a second video, and it's going to be the NFC South. So in this one, of course, we're covering the Colts, Jags, Texans, and Titans. On the next video will be the Bucks, Falcons, Panthers, and Saints. If you haven't tuned in yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, make sure to leave a bell. Hit a comment for us. Let us know what your favorite free agent move is. Maybe you still want to talk about a trade, big trade today. Khalil Mack going to the Chargers, big one on defense. Not really fantasy relevant, but certainly a big name there. So let us know in the comments your favorite free agency move. Maybe it's a trade in the offseason, or who's left. What does your team need? Who do you want as a player or a team manager? So before we get any further, I do want to appreciate everyone that's tuned into this. You can also find our long extended episodes on the podcast. That's Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast, anywhere the Believe Network is found on your podcast. And once again, we're on Fantasy Football Focus channel right here on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook as well. All right, that's enough of an intro. Bob, we got 4 teams. Let's get into it.
Yeah, we're talking about the AFC South. We're going to kick it off with the Indianapolis Colts today, kind of breaking down on your side which free agents are available on the Colts. Essentially, Sky is going to tell us who the free agents are notable for fantasy and where he wants to see these guys go to maximize their fantasy value. So, Sky, we're going to start with the Colts. Give us what you got.
All right, so I got 2 main names here, at least for fantasy purposes. Obviously, they have some offensive linemen moving around too that could potentially, be a huge move there as well. But I'm going to stick with Mo Alley-Cox, who we talked a little bit about on the previous episode, and Marlon Mack, who has kind of just been forgotten about. Of course, he's been injured for a couple seasons, and of course, when you're the backup for Jonathan Taylor, you don't have much of a chance to make it happen. But he played healthier last year. Good prospect coming out of Southern Florida. I think he has an opportunity to maybe find a number 2 role somewhere else. And there's a lot of teams that could use some depth at running back. So I'll start with Big Mo Alley-Cox. I know we're both a big fan of him here on the channel. I talked about Robert Tonyan moving on last episode. Why not have another big body, reliable red zone target for Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers? I like Mo Alley-Cox going to Green Bay. He can block a little bit in the run game. Huge target, obviously, the tallest tight end in the NFL. Another red zone weapon for Aaron Rodgers, and hopefully take a little bit of that heat off of Devontae Adams, although they're pretty much unstoppable in the red zone anyway. The other one is going to be Marlon Mack. And look, I'm not going to try to fool people and convince you he's going to be a starter somewhere. I don't think he's going to be, but I do think he could be a number 2 or a number 3 in a team that uses a lot of the run game. And for me, we're going to talk about Deonte Foreman in a little bit, so a little bit of a spoiler alert, but he's leading Titans most likely. So I kind of like Marlon Mack filling that void for the Titans behind, of course, King Henry is the number 1 and the number 2 for the Titans, but he got hurt last year. They might try to slow him down a little bit, give a little third down package to a guy that can catch the ball, use out of the backfield. Marlon Mack could be that kind of a guy, played in the division. The Titans are very familiar with Marlon Mack, so seems like a good move to me. So I like Marlon Mack going to the Tennessee Titans, and Mo Alley Cox going to the Green Bay Packers.
So flipping over to the Colts side on the GM piece, and the Carson Wentz news kind of threw a kind of a curveball because now they need a QB. And I think the best course of action is to get Jimmy G. I mean, acquire Jimmy G is probably the number one thing they should do because of the fact that, like, the way how they want to play. Jonathan Taylor, dominate with Taylor, play action pass, and then work that ball over the middle of the field with, whoever. Of course, Jimmy G had Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle, but at the same time, Pittman is a nice starting piece. But to be honest with you, they do not have the pieces around Jimmy G in the passing game to help him flourish. So a part of this, too, is I would like to see them sign Christian Kirk. I think Christian Kirk would be a great complement to Michael Pittman. Now, Kirk plays in the slot, also a very good in the deep passing game. He had a very good stats last year on passes over 20 yards. I think that offers a nice complement to a Michael Pittman. This team has been relying for way too long on T.Y. Hilton's health and on Zach Pascal and like kind of these, replacement level players because Hilton can't stay on the field. And I think they need to bring in some talent to help this quarterback. And plus, Christian Kirk has been, I think he flourishes best in the slot. And I think they need to you have Pittman on the outside, a big physical receiver. Let's put in a guy like Kirk. And I think that would really go well with a Jimmy G acquiring so as well. So I'm going to go Jimmy G acquire and then sign Christian Kirk. All right, let's jump down to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sky, tell us what you got for these free agents.
All right, there's only one guy here I want to talk about is DJ Chark, lost last season with an injury. Had a really nice season 2-3 years ago, but of course Trevor Lawrence had a tough time. Urban Meyer saga. The Jags had no chance last year. And DJ Chark obviously was hurt. So I like him to get a fresh start, and it's so easy for me. I realized when I was going through kind of picking where my free agents might land as players, I had like 14 wide receivers going to Atlanta, and I thought that was a little extreme. But I do think DJ Chark is a good fit in Atlanta. Similar body type, similar type receiver to Calvin Ridley. I also had Allen Robinson potentially going over there too. I don't know if they do both those guys, but they have no wide receivers on the roster as of right now. So to me, DJ Chark getting a fresh start, assuming he's healthy, going to Atlanta makes sense. He can be a number one if they need him to with Matt Ryan. I think he's a really high-end number two. Also, if they bring in a guy like Allen Robinson and say he's the number one. So either way, great skill set with DJ Chark, assuming he's healthy. So I'm going to take him from Jacksonville and put him in Atlanta.
Now, Doug Peterson coming over to the Jacksonville Jaguars changes up little things for me. And when I'm looking at that offense, we think of the golden years of Zach Ertz, and that's who the guy I want to see come over to Jacksonville. Rekindle, get back with Doug Peterson. But I also think from Trevor Lawrence's perspective, it gives him a reliable veteran tight end over the middle of the field. We saw Dan Arnold have some nice games. James O'Shaughnessy popped up a couple times last year. And those guys are just kind of average talents. We saw Zach Ertz with the Arizona Cardinals last year. He's still got some stuff left in the tank. I think that for Trevor Lawrence to take the next step, give him a veteran tight end like Zach Ertz, who, by the way, knows the system. He knows what Doug Peterson wants to run, and he can actually be like another coach on the field with Trevor Lawrence to help him with the scheme. That to go along with Marvin Jones and also Laviska Shenault will start building some weapons around him. Then you got Travis Etienne coming back with James Robinson. Now you got something cooking there for the Jacksonville Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. So I really like Zach Ertz joining Doug Peterson in Jacksonville for 2022. Jump down to the Houston Texans. This one's an interesting one. What do you got for us, Guy? What's the deal with these free agents?
Oh man, there's lots of players here. I'm going to just talk about Royce Freeman, and this is kind of a sad story for me, man. Like, I am I'm a big time Duck. He was absolutely phenomenal here in Eugene for the Ducks, led the Pac-12, broke records in the Pac-12. Then he got drafted in the third round by Denver and just fell behind Phillip Lindsay, and then eventually Melvin Gordon and just like other backs, and never had a real chance. And then unfortunately wasn't very efficient when he was on the field. I still think he's a good running back, but he's not a number one in the NFL, unfortunately. I'm going to bring up the Atlanta Falcons again. They need running backs as they need wide receivers. Now you have a guy like Cordero Patterson, who we'll talk about next episode, but he's a free agent. He could play wide receiver and obviously running back. So where do they actually put him? But Mike Davis clearly isn't the answer. They have all these secondary guys. I don't see them panning out either. So they need a running back. They need depth at least. And Royce Freeman is at least better, in my opinion, talent-wise, than Mike Davis is. He's a fresher, faster, better pass catcher than Mike Davis. So they could fill that role again if they keep Cordero Patterson or bring in another number one running back. But Royce Freeman, for me, should be on a roster as a number 2 or number 3 with depth. And again, Atlanta needs a lot of help. So I'd like him to go from Houston to Atlanta.
Now, when I'm looking at the Houston Texans, it's an interesting because they got Pep Hamilton, Lovie Smith now the head coach. Pep Hamilton is the OC. And I'm trying to find ties. And listen, he did have a short stint with the Chargers. So I looked at maybe Justin Jackson at running back. But when you really look at this team, if they're going to roll with Davis Mills, they do have some young talent around him. My thing is, I always find it interesting when you have a young, talented, like a young quarterback, but you also have young, developing skill position players. Behind Brandon Cooks, they're going to be leaning on Nico Collins and Brevin Jordan, 2 very young guys, unproven guys so far, but it sounds like that's what they're going to do. And when it comes down to it, I need to protect my quarterback. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go for the offensive line. Alex Kappa, won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I need some veteran guys up front. I need to protect Davis Mills, build up his confidence, let Nico Collins and Brevin Jordan develop. I feel like I'm a little bit on borrowed time with the Texans because Lovey's coming in. There's low expectations for this organization. But if I want to know if Davis Mills is the guy, I need to invest. And one thing I did notice about Pep Hamilton is they do lean on veterans. They brought in Frank Gore back in Indianapolis. They traded for Trent Richardson when he was there as the offensive coordinator. And I think that, they re-signed Rex Burkhead, which doesn't sound really great, but he did show flashes last year as kind of a complete back. Maybe they go out and get another veteran, maybe like a Marlon Mack, maybe like a James White because of his the GM's connection to the Patriots. I don't know. But at the same time, I think you got to start up front. They were 29th in PFF run grades at the end of that season. So PFF offensive line grades. Last team in this division is the number 1 seed of the AFC, which is the Tennessee Titans. So, Sky, tell us a little bit of a breakdown of the Titans free agents.
Yeah, with the number 1 seed, you don't need, a lot of moving parts in or out. Last year, they somehow had the number 1 seed with Derrick Henry missing half the season, Julio Jones missing half the season, and A.J. Brown in or out, Ryan Tannehill not as dominant as he was the 2 years before that, and a defense that was good but not great. So they could use a number of moves, I think kind of like in non-fantasy positions, offensive line, bolstering, defense, secondary. But if I'm talking fantasy specific, running backs, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, they could use a little tight end help, but that's your job. My job is who is the player and where are they going? Deonta Foreman is a guy that is a running back, really solid out of Texas, great prospect when he came in, fast as hell, tore his Achilles immediately in the NFL, came back, tore his ACL, came back, had thigh issues, came back finally healthy last year. And when Derrick Henry went down, Deonta Foreman played very well, considering nobody replaces Derrick Henry, but Deonta Foreman played very well down the stretch in the second half and made sure that the Titans were able to hold that number 1 seed, get into the playoffs. Of course, they end up losing. Hot take here, Bob. I think the way the Titans were playing at the time and Derrick Henry missing 8-9 games, having him start over Deonta Foreman, I personally think was not a great move from Tennessee. I can't imagine you sit Derrick Henry by any means, but Deonta Foreman was on fire. So was the team. I think that threw a wrench in the system a little bit. They end up losing. So for me, Deonta Foreman's the guy. I'm going to bring him over to New Orleans, right? Who knows what's going on with Alvin Kamara? As of right now, there's no big time charges. I expect him to be back, but you never know with these kind of things in his in Vegas a few weeks ago. And then Mark Ingram, is he even going to play anymore? He's, upwards of 32, 33 years old now. So Deonta Foreman rotating in and out with Alvin Kamara minimum, I think is a great idea. If Alvin Kamara were to miss or be suspended and Mark Ingram moves on or he's just 33 years old, Deonta Foreman is kind of a hybrid between Mark Ingram, big body back and can use short yardage, and Alvin Kamara, shifty, also rocking the dreads, and he can catch the ball a little bit. So Deonta Foreman could find a lot of work in New Orleans, I think, and he's a free guy that they can go out and grab just in case. So Deonta Foreman going to the Saints makes the most sense for me.
Yeah, and you just brought up the tight end stuff, and that's kind of fits perfectly because my pick for this team is Rob Gronkowski. I think the Titans need to go out and find and invest in this offense a little bit more. The game starts and runs through Derrick Henry, and Rob Gronkowski is very good as a run blocker. But on top of this, listen, Jonnu Smith left last year. They left 8 touchdowns. No one on that team took over. And listen, with Julio Jones coming in, no one and getting hurt last year, and AJ Brown getting hurt. This team was they didn't have the weapons for Ryan Tannehill, and I think that they need to invest and swing for the fences. And the thing for Rob Gronkowski here, they were the number 1 seed in the AFC. They have Mike Vrabel, who I think is kind of like a coach's, like a guy that they can get around, Taylor Lewan, like these bros, like these guys that Gronk can get along with, I think. And, listen, this team could be that one piece away. If Henry's coming back, Gronkowski, AJ Brown, Julio Jones, Ryan Tannehill, a solid line up front, I really think that Gronk could be that missing piece. And if it's just a huge need for the Titans. So I'm getting on the phone and I'm saying, hey, Rob, like, come to the number 1 seed. Let's go for one more. Show people that you can win one without Brady. That would be my selling pitch. So why not number 1 seed in the AFC? So that's pretty much all we got for today for those AFC South teams. This is our free agency wish list. Sky, do you have any closing thoughts before we head out?
I do. With the AFC South, Bob, there's not a lot of really exciting names per se that are like leaving these teams as free agents, but all of these teams, minus maybe the Titans, I do like the Gronk fit, but all these teams need a handful of pieces. So it's going to be interesting to see who they bring in, but there's not a lot leaving these teams talent-wise. Just obvious question back to you, Bob. I'm sure listeners are paying attention like, Bob, A, Rob Gronkowski's half retired already. B, if Brady doesn't come back, there's no way Gronkowski comes back. And C, why would Gronk go to any other team that Brady's a part of at this point of his career? Do you actually think Titans or anybody, the Bills came up for a while, do you think Brady or Gronkowski, would play and move on with Tom Brady not being in the picture?
We haven't heard from Gronk, right? I mean, he hasn't
No.
said that he was out, right? So I think there is a shot. I think he's kind of waiting to see what happens with the Tampa Bay Bucks to see if they bring in a quarterback, and I think if they do get like a Deshaun Watson or whatever the case may be, I think Gronk might be considered returning. So I do think there is a shot, but the Titans for me, it's more about fit. Do I actually think this is actually going to happen? No, but at the same time, this is a number 1 seed in the NFC. When you got Tannehill, you have AJ Brown, Julio, and Derrick Henry. They're starting to set up like this team has quietly very great weapons, and they could be a Gronkowski away from making that next jump to compete with the Bengals, Chiefs, and Bills.
I like it, man. And look, let's throw one more name in the mix from the Titans, right? Mike Vrabel bleeds Patriots, right? From way back in the day. So there's another link there. All right, y'all. That's all we got for the AFC South. Make sure you come right back to us. I know we got some live listeners. Yo, we're going to end this video and jump right back on and do the NFC South. So come right back to us. We just broke down the Colts, Jags, Texans, and Titans right here on the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast, fantasy-focused YouTube channel. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. It means so much to us to build our channel and network. Make sure you hit that bell. Leave a comment of your favorite free agent signing so far or who you want your team to grab. This episode and all episodes are brought to you by the Believe Networks and, of course, BetOnline AG. We will be right back with you with the NFC South, the Bucks, Falcons, Panthers, and Saints in just a couple minutes. For Bob, I'm Sky. We'll catch you later.